Do you have the ability to access all your therapeutic and psychological knowledge when it actually matters in real time, when the situation is stressful? If you cannot do that, then your life is going to be on repeat, on the same loop. But I'll tell you how to do that. And we're gonna move from vague therapeutic psychological language to actually precision questions that will allow you to diagnose yourself and see in which points you are actually making mistakes, quote unquote, because there's no really such thing as mistakes on your growth or healing journey. There's just only things that you can repair and you can do differently next time. So let's start. What I notice is that a lot of my clients have the knowledge that they can use in their everyday life. They have knowledge about boundaries, they have knowledge about emotional regulation. We are absolutely bombarded with different types of knowledge, podcast, books, YouTube, name it. However, there's very few people who are talking about precision and the practical application of this knowledge. Because even if you have the practical application of the knowledge, and a lot of the times, what is happening is that people are not precise. People don't go into the nitty-gritty of a particular situation or a particular person's mindset or emotional world. And therefore, that actually really shows that not a lot of people who are online had to sometimes actually overcome the things that the majority of the people had to overcome, like trauma, like poverty, because their starting point was very, very different. And that is not to criticize these people, because of course everyone have a different starting point. But if you listen to the advice of someone whose starting point is a healthy, normal family, and you had been through trauma, and you still keep on applying the advice of the people who had a completely different starting point, then this is when things go wrong. And this is what we're seeing in our world, in our lives, that things do go wrong because there's not enough precision and the language is just vague. So let's get to the nitty-gritty. So what happens is that what I notice because on top of being a therapist, I'm also a English language teacher. I notice in my student work that when my students are becoming stressed or they feel under some sort of pressure, whether that is internal or external, their access to the knowledge that I know they possess is suddenly limited. It's almost like there's like a filter. Suddenly the knowledge that they have, whether that is grammatical, that is syntax or vocabulary, is gone. And we also have, a lot of the times we have that experience that it's almost like you cannot say the word that actually would be really good words to say because you're particularly stressed. So you have to start understanding that your knowledge, your theoretical knowledge is one thing, and that is like one aspect of your being. But being able to access that knowledge and actually apply that knowledge precisely in a situation when that knowledge is needed, that is a completely different ball game. And that is actually the therapy that I am giving to people. I am not talking to my clients about, the general stuff or their general thing. We're going into the one situation and we breaking it down to a detailed piece so they can see what is actually happening underneath and what is the conditioning that is still driving the behavior and when that conditioning actually comes in. So let's do a little bit of that now, because I want you to, like I said, to start diagnosing yourself. Diagnosing not in a mental health way, but in the way that you're going to be able to diagnose that the failure to apply the knowledge that you do have in a real-time situation. So let's say I want you to really think about, okay, what are the books, that you read about psychology, therapy, healing, growth? And I want you to think about, okay, if I read these books, listen to these podcasts, all this, you're going to see there's a lot of it. And I really want you to actually see that you consumed a lot of knowledge already. Now, so you consumed all that knowledge, okay? And now I want you to look at your life and tell me, okay, how you applied the knowledge from that book, that chapter, that actual episode in a podcast, that YouTube video, how you applied it in real life. Blank stare? Yes, a lot of people have that blank stare. I also had that blank stare when I was on my healing journey, and that was my blind spot. I had a lot of theoretical knowledge, but I couldn't use it in situations when it mattered, and that's when I had to absolutely apply behavioral precision. So I want you to, once you have the literal list of the things that you're supposed to be able to use practically, I want you to think of, let's say, one area that you're really struggling with and that really kind of is the most important for you and you keep on looping, yeah? So let's say maybe that could be boundaries, yeah? So think of the boundaries and think of, okay, think of the most recent situation that you had, and that you had to apply boundaries. And explain, it's almost like I want you to break that conversation or situation to the molecule, to an atom. So I want you to think about, okay, what has actually happened here? And focus on facts only. So I want you to state specifically what the person have said, or people, whoever, what have you said, and what has happened. That's it. That is it. So now you have the facts. So you have the facts minus the interpretation, minus, how you had been feeling emotionally, your meaning applied, any old impulses, nothing. You simply have their behavior, you have what has happened, and you have your behavior. And you can see. Now you can see. Now you have the knowledge that you consumed. Now you have the real life situation. And I want you to be honest with yourself. Have you applied the knowledge from these books, from these podcasts, from these videos that you watched in that situation? Maybe a little bit. Okay, be precise. When you applied the knowledge and what sort of specific knowledge that was. Maybe you said no, maybe you disagreed, and maybe you didn't feel triggered by that you disagreed and you felt like, I actually feel okay with disagreeing with them. That's good. So I want you to be very specific. As you can see, this is specificity, guys. So you've got nowhere to run away from. It's almost like I'm giving you a little bit of some sort of a felt sense of how would it be for you to be in a session with me. You don't really have anywhere to hide because we're getting into the facts and then what has actually happened. So, okay, so the things that you have done, okay, this was okay. Where you didn't apply that knowledge. So which behavior was still there, present, that you didn't apply the knowledge about the boundaries. When you ignored your needs, but maybe you ignored your priorities. How that showed up in behavior. Now that you know when specifically the old impulses come in, just think about, okay, so I disagreed with them and that was okay, but then I actually said yes to another meeting with them when actually I didn't want to, let's say, yeah? Okay, what has happened? So what did that person say that you actually agreed to that next meeting? So now you have a particular, specific, precise trigger that triggered and activated an old impulse. Do you see? Now, this one situation is an overview of your current behavioral patterns. So you apply this to any other situation, and then voila, after a week of doing that, guys, you're going to see some results in an actual identity shift, quote unquote, which is basically behavioral shift. And you're going to notice that, okay, you can apply that knowledge in a calm situation, but also at some point you will start applying that knowledge that you already possess about the boundaries, as an example, could be anything else, like I said, in more stressful situations. It's all about basically not even a mastery, but more like just proper growth. So I trust that that was helpful. This is like a session with me would look like for you when we're getting into the nitty-gritty, like I said, of your particular patterns. If you want help with that, book a session with me. Everything is explained on my website. There's no strings attached, but also there's nothing hidden. It's everything there in plain sight, which I think makes a decision much, I would say, cleaner for you. You know literally what to expect. And yes, like, share, and subscribe, and I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye-bye.